I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. Now, over the last few episodes, I have been building out the research facility, and we have started researching all kinds of different mods, different mobs, and different components for all kinds of different things, leading us into rooms like this, which was a research on the stronghold, research over here onto the bees from the Bumble Zone, and also research into the Wither and Evoker. Today, we are going to be diving into more of the research towards the dragon. And that means we need to get into something that is related to dragons, right? Enchanting. Now, Apotheosis that we're going to be getting into today may seem 100% like a magic mod, but let me tell you, it involves some math, and you're also going to need to do a ton of adventuring in order to fully set up the max enchanting system, which is what we actually need in order to complete this Adventure Bounds chapter. Believe it or not, this is the only thing sort of holding us back beside the food and a little bit of Draconic Evolution, and that is going to be the Infused Dragon's Breath. And this is kind of important. This is like the top tier material that we are going to need. This infused stuff allows you to make the highest end bookshelf, allowing for the highest tier enchantments possible from within this mod. But to be able to get this, we need a lot of Eterna that needs to be built up, and Quanta, and also we need these very specific amounts. So it says right here, requires at least. Also on this, requires at least, but no more than so much, right? It's saying no more than 25. We got to keep in mind these values. And this right here. Now, getting started with Apotheosis can be kind of daunting, but I'm going to try my best to explain it in, well, the chosen way. But just like explaining in the chosen way, I want to build in the chosen way. And that means we are going to need a place for this. And that's where these doors, aka portals, are going to really come into play. And exactly what do I mean by portals? Well, we just got into Ars Nouveau, and Ars Nouveau, believe it or not, grants us some really, really nice portals that we can use to essentially make it feel like we're walking into another room. Now, to really get into this, you're going to need some Mage Bloom seeds. I've already crafted mine up. This just requires that enchanting apparatus to get the seed, and then you need to grow the seed once, and you get yourself some Mage Bloom. And thankfully, I added EMC to these. So this makes this very easy to get Mage Bloom fibers and so on and so forth. And Mage Bloom fibers are pretty darn cool. So what we can do is we can take these and we can craft a ton of different blocks. Now, there's a lot of things you can also make with it, for example, armor and stuff like that. But we can utilize this to make some very interesting blocks. Now, with those fibers, we can make the Mage Bloom blocks, and this is where things get pretty powerful. So all of those essences that we ended up making can convert this into a bunch of different things. For example, Skyweave allows us to see a skyblocks. So if you've never seen this, it is amazing. You can essentially place it down, and now you can create a portal, essentially, that makes it look like the skybox. So yeah, you can surround an entire room with this and it would look like you're literally in a skyblock. But the block that I really like is the Mirror Weave. So this allows you to place down several blocks like this, and then you can change all of them to look like any block. But this can also be a portal. So just like this, I can essentially create a portal that takes me anywhere. Now, I do need to figure out where I want this portal to go, and wherever this goes is actually where our enchanting setup is going to be. And so now this is where warp scrolls come into place. For example, we're going to need a warp scroll that also sends us back to this location, because I would really love to have a portal on the other side that takes us right back here. So the way we link these is by shift right clicking, and that is going to record my location. Now, this is fine if we do it within this dimension, but if we go cross-dimensional with this, we are going to need to upgrade this into a stabilized warp scroll. You actually can't make cross-dimensional portals without this being a stabilized version. So now for the fun part, figuring out where do I want this Apotheosis setup to be. Now, I was thinking maybe the inn would be a good place, so I was looking around for different structures, and these outer end balls that are just kind of floating in the air look kind of amazing on the inside. And I was thinking if I hollow this out and I put like a glass wall here, that way I can kind of see on the outside, and then put a portal in here, that would look really cool. I just want to find one that has a really nice scenic view. For example, this one right here has a perfect view of the ship in the sky. Oh my goodness, this is the perfect one. Now I just got to make sure when I break into this, ooh, each one has different colors too. I just want to make sure that this is going to be the side that is going to contain our portal. So I think after a little bit of decoration, this is going to be great. I ended up using some in-rods with an illuminated rod right here. Oh, that looks so good. And I'm using some of the quartz here from Applied Energistics, and I think that fits pretty well. Gives it a little bit of texture. And then I also utilize some of this heavy in-stone brick from Architect's palette. But this is going to be my door. So I'm going to basically be able to walk in and walk out. Now, we already set our warp scroll. This one over here on the right takes us back to the base. But this is the one that we need to place in. And this is the one that is going to link us, for example, to this position whenever we walk through the other side. So now that that's stored, we have the left, which is going to take us here. We need to get these converted into their other version, so that way we can set the portals being cross-dimensional. And so my in-between, while I'm doing this, is going to be a waystone, allowing me to get back and forth. Now, this is going to be very helpful renaming these scrolls. For example, this one to Research Lab and this one like to End Enchanting. You know what? I think I'm going to call this one Enchantment Lab as well. So to kind of keep the lab sort of research vibe going that we have. So now all I got to do is place these in. Of course, we did automate this, but this is like one of those processes that just has to be hand done. So we place this in. That's going to get this upgraded to a stabilized version. By the way, if you use these, they're gone. But when they're stabilized, you can use them over and over again. And they can also just up and generate a portal on the go, which is pretty darn cool. But we don't actually need that to take place right now. All we're going to need is this and a source jar, and we will be able to create a portal that will allow us to link from one position to another. Now, to generate this portal, we're going to have to keep in mind where these are located. For example, this one takes us back to the research lab, takes us to this position here. This one takes us to the lab. Now, we're going to need a full source jar for this, and all you have to do is place it near the portal, and then we just toss the enchantment lab into the center, and that generates a portal. Now, if you want to change the look of this, you can right-click it with a wand, and I prefer this look over the others, and it also allows us to see the outer edge, which I think I want to set to the cyan terracotta tile. And yes, after it is made, you should be able to change it. We are going to have to access the bottom here, and it doesn't actually affect the portal at all. So perfect. So now that is swapped. I don't want it to be that one. And it doesn't even consume the block. Very, very useful, I think. So there we go. So that is done. By the way, entities, including items, can end up going through this. Notice whenever I'm looking at it, it also, because we renamed it, tells me where it's going to take me. And it consumed 90% of that source jar. And then we need to do the same thing on this side. Notice it teleported me here. So let's go ahead and place our source jar in this dimension. And this should take us to the research lab. There we go. And I'll do the same thing with this one. I'll be sure to click this to swap it over. And I want to set this, I think, to like an end stone. We could have it be heavy stone, but I think using like end stone bricks might fit it a little bit better. I don't know. We could do that, or we could even use this mint crystal. You know what? The mint crystal looks pretty darn good. I'm actually going to stick with that. I think that fits it just a little bit better. Even though that looks really good too. Yeah, I'm going to stick with the mint crystal for now. And there we go. So now we have both of these portals linked together. Keep in mind, you can send entities. You can send like mobs into a central location with this. You can have it teleport items. There's all kinds of cool uses for this. I've even used it in the past to like teleport the wither from one location to another to have it put in a more efficient killing chamber. So now that we have our pathways, all we have to do is just walk from one to another. And it just like, it's like walking through a door. I mean, this is fantastic. We now have cross-dimensional travel, and I'm also going to use the portal for this side as well, but we'll talk about that some other time. For right now, we've got to get into Apotheosis enchantments. Now for this, I'm going to need to utilize an experience crystal. So let's actually go grab some experience. Right now, this has like 135 levels stored in it. But we should be able to pop over here and grab all of the levels out of here. So let's go ahead and retrieve all of them. I now have 609 levels. It's so many. And then I'm just going to store all of those levels into this. And I'm going to bring this with me to the end. And that's because Apotheosis utilizes a ton, and I mean a ton, of experience. So you know what? I'm going to place this right up here for right now. And let's go ahead and start building out the basis of our enchantment system. Now, another thing that can be kind of tedious within Apotheosis is how we actually make some of these bookshelves. So I'm going to need to be doing a lot of brewing here in order for this to work, but it's not going to be as bad as you might think, so long as you've made yourself a temporal pouch. Now, potions are 100% going to be something that are going to be kind of a pain point, but I believe that this can make this very easy. So you just have a hopper. I'm using a wooden hopper here. They're pretty fast. That is connected to a regular barrel. So you do have to make sure on your puller, which is going on the bottom of this brewing stand, to filter these out specifically, you need to make sure match MBT is on. You're using an advanced hopper and you have the potion that you want to pull out set up and making sure that it is in the appropriate potion. So for example, it's only going to pull out awkward potions in this case. So once we have all of this set up, it should brew up and we can use our temporal pouch to really accelerate this. And so what you should see is now all of these awkward potions being generated like this. And the same thing is going to happen whenever we start to make a bunch of different other potions. For example, we need potions of regeneration to make a bunch of hell shelves, and then we're going to use those to infuse and so on and so forth. And some of these do require certain potions to be brewed up. And this right here is just how good this is. We can speed this up so much. For example, I can now take all of these out, start to load them in, and I have the gas tiers ready to go. Use the pouch, and these just get made so fast. This, I mean, there's other ways that you can definitely make potions, for example, with thermal, but this is also incredibly fast. So now our first step is to make about 15 of these hell shelves, and that is going to be our first sort of step into Apotheosis, our first major step, right? And we're going to build this out the same way we would typically build out our standard enchanting setup. So we just need something like this, you know, just sort of placing in 15 of these, like so. And now we need to actually make another hell shelf. So this is going to be our first introduction into what's called Infusion. And notice it requires 45 levels. So this is where all of those levels are going to really come into play. And so with this and some lapis, which we're going to need quite a bit of too for this process, there we go. We now have ourselves Infusion. And so what we're going to want to do over time as well is actually break our current hell shelves and replace them with the infused versions. Now, notice the difference in the Eterna and Quanta as we change from, for example, the infused version, and we also have the regular hell shelf, right? So these values do change over time. Now, something I highly recommend taking a look at is the Chronicles of Shadows from Apotheosis. So once you place something like this down, notice this right here says 30 to 60, and we can hold down Sneak and right click, and it's going to tell us about these hell shelves. But I do recommend taking a look. Now I'm going to do my best here to explain what all three of these different values mean. So for example, right here, Eterna, each point of Eterna increases the maximum enchantment level by 2. And that's something you kind of want to keep in mind when talking about Eterna. Now Quanta essentially sort of increases the value that your enchantment power can be. For example, you have Fortune 2, Fortune 3, Fortune 4, and so on. This will start to vary that amount and will give you higher tier enchants the higher it goes up. And Arcana essentially changes the rarity of enchants, which may be a hidden mechanic that you don't even know about with vanilla enchanting, but certain tools actually have a higher chance of getting certain enchants. Well, Arcana here will essentially allow you to increase the likelihood of getting those more rare enchants. And then we have Retrofaction, which is something that's kind of like obscure, but definitely something you can work on that will actually lower your quanta, and that's typically what it's meant to do, which will change some of the values, just allowing you to get more customizable when it comes to your enchanting. And then last but not least, we have clues, and clues are another modifier that we'll see in Apotheosis that allow you to just essentially see more of the enchants that will potentially be on your tool. Whereas like a vanilla enchantment table will only show you like one, it'll say like Unbreaking, and you're hoping and fingers crossed that you're going to end up getting, for example, Protection 4. Well, this right here will let you see more of those. And there are some of the modification blocks that will give you more and more clues, specifically like the echoing versions of stuff. Now, as I continue to infuse this, you might notice something is happening. For example, I put this in, well, now it costs 46 levels to do this. And that is because this is actually modifying our Eterna values. and it is going to cost more to enchant the higher our Eterna is, I do believe. Now looking at our enchantment table, we can see all of those values, but also putting an item in here allows us to see those values as well. But Jade thankfully shows us the actual detailed values up there. Now with all of the resources that I give you in this pack, this should be a very fun time to experiment with this process, as there's not a whole lot keeping you back from getting all the way to the max tier very quickly, allowing you to play around with some really awesome enchanting mechanics that would typically go unused because of the sheer cost of all of these, for example, shelves. And I personally find this mechanic to be really fun, actually. Like, this is surprisingly fun. Now you may be thinking, Chosen, why don't you just go straight to the in shelves? That looks pretty reasonable, right? Well, you can't actually just jump to in shelves. Now, once you have in shelves, it would be very easy to do this infusion to make the infused dragon's breath, but you have to have it to make the in shelves. So I think the best step is to kind of work your way through them. As you slowly start to work your way, you should be able to get access to, for example, echoing shelves. And a mixture of these shelves are going to be your best bet for making sure you get a high value of Eterna and also Quanta. Now, there are other things that you can search for. For example, if you search Eterna, you're going to find that there are some things that have Eterna values, or specifically Arcana. I know like skulls and stuff have it. And there are, for example, these that they give you a little bit of a bonus percentage on your Arcana stats. So if you actually place these candles inside of the enchanter's range, you'll be able to increase that amount. This also goes for like crystals, and all kinds of different stuff, like skulls, for example. Like you can get plus 10 quanta from a wither skull. Now to be able to do the sea shelf infusions, literally just place in 5 of the sea shelves into the enchantment setup, just like this, and keep all of the 15 infused hellforges, and that should be more than enough to allow you to get the infusion done on the sea shelves. And I recommend getting about 10 or so of these infused up, because after that, I want to convert these into their highest tier, which should get us into the Heart Forged versions. And with all of these converted over, we now have a bunch of these amazing Heart Forged sea shelves. Now, I think the next step is also getting some deep shelves, which will allow us to get some echoing skulk shelves. And these values are all going to line up, but what we actually need is still this infusion. So this is going to require 30 maximum Eterna. So we need to max out our Eterna at 30. And then we also need Quanta, and we're going to need 40 Arcana. Those can be a little bit challenging to get. And notice right here, we're actually not yet at our maximum values. Now we're at 30, and our Quanta is good, but our Arcana is not so good. So what we can do is you can actually use, for example, handles, and that's a 5% boost in Arcana. And there we go. There's another 5% boost in Arcana. And there's another 5% boost in Arcana. Now, I don't think this affects it on the side. Never mind, it does. So these corners can also increase the Arcana. And so now we're exactly where we need to be. So do not sleep on the candles. They are very powerful. And now that I have this, these dormant shelves can now be infused. So yeah, as you can see, I'm just kind of taking and going a step at a time, building around this enchantment table. And then here soon, we're actually gonna be able to make this much smaller. Now, the reason we need this echoing shelf is because we need at least one of these to allow our Eterna to reach a maximum of 40. So we have to have this one echoing shelf. You can see right here where it says max 40. This is going to, just having one of these, allow the maximum to get to that level. We can't actually go over it with this shelf. And if, for example, with this, we couldn't go over 30. So yes, we have to have at least one of the high tier versions in here, and then all of the other ones can help bring it up. So let's go ahead and make, for right now, at least 2 of these echoing deep shelves. And yes, you need to have taken on the Warden for this. And also for this, you need a very specific item from the Warden called the Warden Tendril that is Apotheosis exclusive. And we're also going to need a little bit of Skulk. And with this, we are actually very close to having the enough stuff set up in order to get Infusion up and running. So there we go. So there's a echoing shelf, and I just love all of these things that are being said here. Embrace the skulk, delving into the darkness, mastering hell and sea, sleeping in the cold below, Eterna, Quanta, Arcana, all of these. I just love all these advancements. And speaking of advancements, this is actually the guide to this mod. So this will actually lead you through all of the things that you would need in order to even reach this stuff. And so now, after getting all of those things, we should have everything set up to be able to make the exact setup for the infusion of the Dragon's Breath. So to do this, we need to get our Eterna to at least 40. We can't have our Quanta any higher than 25, but definitely needs to be above 15. And then Arcana needs to be 60 or more percent in order for us to do this infusion. So let me give you the secret formula. If you want to do this yourself, of course, I recommend skipping ahead. But for right now, in case you're wanting to know, this is how we're going to do it. We are just going to need 10 forged sea shelves and then 2 echoing sculpt shelves. And that is going to look like this. I think a very nice setup for this is just simply placing them all like so, and then placing your 2 echoing sculpt shelves right here. And with that done, if we look down, we are at exactly 40, we're at exactly 25%, and we're at exactly 100% Arcana. And this allows us to now take Dragon's Breath, which I believe I have stored in here. And we can now infuse the Dragon's Breath. It's going to cost 80 levels. It is a very, very expensive thing to do, but it is going to be so worth it. And now we have infused Dragon's Breath, and you get 3 of them in this actual craft. And now, you know what's funny? I didn't even plan this, but this room fits so perfectly with this particular setup and the colors. The mint, oh man, the mint crystals go perfectly with these Hellforged sea shelves. Man, that is a really hard thing to say. But, oh, this is fantastic. We got the view of the ship out here. What a beautiful place to come and enchant some books. Now, of course, I can't forget to talk about this, the enchantment library, which we are going to need some ender chest for. It looks like I can just make a few of those, but I definitely recommend making the enchantment library. You are going to thank me for this. The enchantment library is so cool. So we can take this, and we can keep this in here, by the way. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to store enchantment books. So any of these enchantment books that we have, we can store them, and it allows us to pull books out. This is, of course, from Apotheosis. Look at all of this. It is so good. And you can select up to a certain level. Now, that level is determined by the highest maximum level that you have put into here. So, for example, if you pull out like 2 of these efficiency 2 books, you can see that it'll let you take it up to efficiency 3. But if I was to combine this in an anvil and put it back in as efficiency 4, well, now I can pull out a maximum of efficiency 4. So this is a pretty cool little thing that you can do. It allows you to customize and build your enchants way more effectively than the vanilla way. And then also there's the Library of Alexandria. This one is actually the highest tier version, and this requires you to have a maxed out setup for Eterna, limiting your Quanta, and is another infusion type, but this is kind of worth it. You can see it lets you store higher levels of enchantment books. And then, of course, don't sleep on this, but these tomes are so worth it. They allow you to kind of only work on enchants that are related to very specific types of gear. Like, for example, boots would get you feather falling and things like that. You can literally just focus those things by just crafting these books and creating your enchants with them. For example, multi-jump is something that you get on boots, and so this is a way you can focus that. And now the funny part about all of this Apotheosis stuff, this is just the enchantment module part of the mod. There's actually a whole other section that involves bosses. It also includes like breaking down armor and gear crafting and getting even crazier with it. But this was just mainly to unlock our infusion, which allows us to now craft that one component. And now the only thing keeping us, I think, from making all of the other stuff to at least making the dragon is, well, just making a draconic core. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully you'll learn something new, whether it was about the Ars portals or about getting into Apotheosis and getting into the infusion crafting. This stuff is pretty darn cool, and I hope you learned something new. If you did, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. And now with all that being said, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that huge thanks is going to go out to, if I can spell things right, Sloth, thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Thank you so very much. And guys, if you're looking to join an amazing community, check out the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect, or you can find that linked down in the description below. I thank you all so much, and well, of course, I'm gonna thank you again, and as always, thanks for watching. Bye!